ask are you?
I am the artist who fashioned this nun. I am the painter, I the creator, whose work you have clearly undone. Tell me, why must you malign my painting and me, and willfully misunderstand what you see?
But we are tenured faculty, accredited art critic.
That would explain it.
We pause in this cantata to interview the artist and find by what mixture of whimsy and myth this picture would be a Santa Rosalia. Why doesn't your art look like what we're used to?
My ideas on art are the opposite of practically every other painter here. But that is part of the fun. It is true that Cézanne, for instance, painted many of his masterpieces based on a few apples. But if all art history were based on apples, it would be very boring.
But we like apples.
I don't paint apples anymore.
Oranges and bananas are the authentic fruits of the tropics. Apples are for snobs.
Why bother painting?
My desire is to create a painter's world, like the real world, full of everything. Children as important as bananas. Create something which is true and authentic.
Create something which is true and
Then
authentic.
it will become part of the culture of a
Then it
place.
will become part of the culture of a place.
Most painters have a little idea.
Overpainted and overexplained. Overexplained.
I start as a poet, put the colors and composition down on canvas as a painter.
As a painter, but finish my work as a sculptor, taking delight in caressing the forms. We see, we think we see, we'll see if what we think we see is what is seen.
I see.
We return to our regularly scheduled cantata. There Rosalia Saintles about to get started.
Poetic Rosalia prayed to God that he might lead her into whatso shape he chose, as he golden walls and spires,
rocks and turrets of her cavern, over ancient endless ages, into beauty of arrangements. As the endless rains that beat the proud vast forest into heat, so does gentle endless treasure might call mankind to his pleasure. Harry Potter's hands of trees to fall before the gaze that sees both animals and
And she achieved such sanctity that all Palermo calls her patroness.
You see, we saw, we think we saw, we've seen that's what we thought we saw, is what was seen.
This picture's an emblem that's meant to resemble the saint's life in symbols. For instance, her hymnal is shown to convey her Catholic faith. As long as this looks back, represents the deep heart of the holy desire. Metaphorically make a painted testament of the Old and New Testament. an artist before me who found in these forms of habit and wimple an adequate sample of color and light. I explore texture and value in paint and happen to follow the form of a saint. But what does it mean? It's meant to be seen.
Truly the same.
It's nature's mistake and the painter's dilemma, with landscape and seascape all tediously vertical, or dully horizontal. The artist seeks out the little that is askew or angled. That is why drapes are the most painted objects in Western art history.
But back to the portrait.
What does the snake mean? Meaning is a figment. The snake's merely pigment. It bears no deep symbolic tag at all. I simply needed a diagonal. I created my painting much as our own lives create us, not choosing some ready-made figures to shade it. Beginning with blank canvas and the sheer joy of doing, I find a marvel at the end. Don't worry over names. Life is not a test, but a dance, and every step that threatens a mischance yet promises a perfect pirouette. I never knew who she would be until she was finished. Now forget this nonsense of symbols and see the steps whereby she came to me. Santa Rosalia.
and gnocchi, cardamom cookies, chargers of pork and almond trout, sweet cherry ice and apple gelato, hummus and figures from calamari, pasta and gnocchi, cardamom cookies, chargers of pork and almond trout, sweet cherry ice and apple gelato.
Rosalia, fed for months on lichens and a little moss, now presented with such surfeit of sweetmeats, was at a loss.
Powerless herself to stave off demons and their coming food, Rosalia, upon the Father's mercy paid, and miscued, flares of light, flares of light, and flares of light, and flares of light, will trace the decades past, perform God's stock,
Encased within a shroud of rock, as flowstone veiled her face.
Cold stone became her canister. Was it not yet so? A disaster turned her into
a pilaster,
A cavern banister, wrapped brightly as a party favor, buried by no common fate.
God saved her like a favorite treat. He wished the world to see her.
but waited centuries to give Palermo her forgotten things.
The city ripped apart by plague and lost the will to live.
A dashing Spaniard entered Palermo,
A soldier fleeing the tyrannies that racked his native Pyrenees, a rustic from Palermo.
seeking employment as man at arms. The holy legend all report
That having quaffed his draught of port, he saw two branded arms appear in air right in the tavern. The Lord who gave the plaza pigeons
Granted the frenzied fellow visions.
a nun within a cavern.
She spoke.
Dear Papa, God has sent me to reveal this limestone lake, which promises to end the plague and my imprisonment. I am the blessed Rosalia, who wish this plague to fly. I find a cure in a stalagmite, my stony ossuary. Come find my tomb and chisel of all relics, Satan's petrified, miraculously petrified. I cure the plaguing out, and by the way, in case you seek some proof to serve as guarantee, I offer you this prophecy. You're sent to die next week. Don't worry, your seat is reserved near mine in happy paradise. Now rouse the throne and climb the place beneath redundant.
He did just as the vision had, the townsmen found the grave, as soon as they prayed for him. They stand the column of calcium carbonate. Rosalia was revealed. They carried back the precious daughter to the bishop's highest altar, and all the town was in.
Palermo from all sickness free, and sins by Rosalia shriven.
The soldiers found a spot in heaven,
And so we hope,
and so we hope shall
and
we.
so we hope shall we.
Funding for Santa Rosalia has been provided by the Palmer Foundation, the Penn State College of Arts and Architecture, and the Penn State Institute for the Arts and Humanistic Studies. Funding for Santa Rosalia has been provided by the Palmer Foundation, the Penn State College of Arts and Architecture, and the Penn State Institute for the Arts and Humanistic Studies.
The painting, Santa Rosalia by Fernando Botero, has always fascinated me. There's a wonderful whimsy, a kind of absurdity about her, but yet she is fascinating. The Palmer Museum was celebrating its new galleries, the opening of the new museum in 1993, and it occurred to me that that a wonderful way to celebrate those new galleries would be to write a piece of music. And having known the painting, it seemed like that would be a good topic.
What brings us together?
What news do we gather?
What calls for our singing?
What praises resounding,
Recounting the vita,
Recounting the vita.
Santa Rosalia.
A cantata is a vocal composition, a kind of miniature opera, minus sets, minus costumes, but still there's the drama, the singing, and the instruments.
Auspicious importance,
We praise her new portrait.
which God's taken care of.
This could have been a much easier cantata to write if Botero had done what he was supposed to do in our minds, that is, paint a picture called Santa Rosalia that was about Santa Rosalia. We spent weeks and weeks researching the historical Santa Rosalia.
And as we investigated the legends of Santa Rosalia, she became an even more fascinating figure.
She lived in the 12th century.
She was an anchorite, went off to live alone in the mountains.
And I imagined the young Rosalia as a pretty upper-class girl from a pretty good family, but a very large family.
She is a nun. She's dedicated her life to God, to contemplation.
Then Bruce and I went to New York to interview Botero, and surprise, his picture was about form, paint, composition, many things, but it had nothing to do with the historical Santa Rosalia, except almost as an afterthought. Botero is particularly well known for refusing to answer questions about what does his art mean. He doesn't like to think of his art as symbols. This means that. The mountain represents this. The snake represents that. He can be a very cagey interviewee. So what I was trapped with as a librettist was a story which was a great story, the legend, the historical story of Santa Rosalia, and the fact that the painting perhaps didn't have much to do with that history.
Like some blessed man, but bright in this room lies a holy balloon. Too soon to be Santa Rosalia.
What constantly happens to all works of art, there's this other layer of critics who are constantly interpreting, constantly telling us what to think, constantly telling us what the art means. What I did know is that Botero thinks very little of this critical process, and that was the key to bringing together the historical legends and the work of art, so that the cantata works as the story of Santa Rosalia framed around the critics talking about the art, with Botero bursting out saying, no, 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 that's not what it means at all, let me tell you.
What's this? You've got it all wrong. My figures are not fat. They look rather slender to me.
As he tells us what his art means, so too the cantata tells us who Santa Rosalia was.
I seek to depict the plasticity of my medium in my own way. And following tradition of artists before me who found in these forms of habit and wimple an adequate sample of color and light, I explore texture and value in paint and happen to follow the form of a saint. But what
And so there's these two main thrusts. Botero's views of painting, of which Santa Rosalia is a prime example of his philosophy of art. But beyond that, the painting is of Santa Rosalia. She was an historical figure, and a very fascinating one, and one that is still revered by the people of Sicily and Palermo.
Many people have told the legend of Santa Rosalia, but there's very little known about her. She left her home, ran off to a cave, and spent her life praying.
Solitary Rosalia, prayed to God that he would free her from the people crowding round her.
Aunt and uncle, second cousins,
Boys, nephews, and cousins,
chambermaids, acquaintances,
the very Maria.
the highway and the peasantry, the populace of Sicily, the harried and bustling city.
Read the crowded little girl.
Needing only her own space to bloom into a saint.
The facts we know are very few. The legends around her are legion, though. The most accepted legend of Santa Rosalia was that after she went off to Mount Pellegrino to pray, she died there. And over the years, the dripping of the water from the cave left a trace of minerals across her face, her whole body, until through the centuries, she was literally encased in rock. She became a stalagmite. Flash forward 2-3 centuries to the 16th century, when the bubonic plague is wiping out the population of Sicily. The legends report that a Spanish soldier received a vision, and in his vision he saw a young girl who said, "I am Santa Rosalia. I am in the cave. Come get me. Break open the stalagmite. You'll find my body. Bring my body to Palermo, and I will cure the town, in fact, all of Sicily, of the plague." The legends report that when Santa Rosalia's body was discovered, the plague was lifted from all of Sicily. From that time on, Rosalia became the patroness especially revered in Palermo.
Santa Rosalia is an Italian saint. She is from Palermo, and we wanted to capture that sense of the vigor and richness of life. And one of the things in her temptation, she is attracted by this wonderful feast that is described in the libretto. And I used a suggestion of an Italian tarantella for that list of food, and it goes...
Sweet cherry ice and apple gelato, hummus and figures for calamari, pasta and wolf, color and gold, corners of pork and lemony trout, sweet cherry ice and apple gelato.
Sicily is probably best known in music for a particular dance form, the Siciliana. We early on knew we wanted to include a movement that was in that style. The Siciliana is the dotted eighth note rhythm in 6/8-9/8. And our movement is for instruments alone. Today, Santa Rosalia is still the patroness of Palermo. She's still the saint to which people pray to end the plague. And we close our cantata with a plague prayer. And I think probably this is the essence of the cantata, what we were trying to say about the painting, that it has magical power, that the images of saints are still with us, and they can still inspire and lead us to contemplation.
Santa Rosalia in the cave before she dies asks God to bring upon her all the worries, all the cares, the concerns of all the people, so that she really becomes a patroness who's very motherly, tender, and healing. This idea ultimately takes over the entire cantata in the last movement, the Plague Prayer. The historical Rosalia, the saint who can still be called for aid in the 16th century, can be called upon in the 20th century also. And the cares, the concerns, the sickness of our age are still in her hands.